This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
The death of my son, moving 3 times in 6 months, my parents' divorce, my husband's job loss.
I was, 12 weeks postpartum. My then husband came out to me as transgender, and just a couple weeks later, our son suddenly died.
I have a bunch of paperwork I need to sign with my real estate attorney, and then I also have a bunch of paperwork I need to sign with my divorce attorney. How crazy is it that I have 2 attorneys on retainer, Judith?
All right, guys. So this is our first episode of 2021. I mean,
No, 2022.
2022. This is our first episode of 2022. First episode in 2022 means that it is January, which is going to be a bad month for me. Sorry, as a reminder, this is your hot mess friend, Alina, who can't find her microphone, so enjoy the audio today. Quinn's mom.
And this is Judith, hot mess, Aiden's mom.
Should we do a life update? I'm just realizing.
Sure, Lena, go for it. Give us a life update. What's been going on in your life?
Well, it's January, which is not a good month for me. The 15th is my birthday, my 31st birthday, and the 18th will be the first anniversary of Quinn's death, which is going to be challenging. So that's mainly what's going on. My leave with the state expires on the 18th. So I'll be back full time working after that. Kaylee and I are closing on our house on January 11th. So sometime between now and January 11th, I have to clear out everything from the house and say goodbye to Quinn's room and do all that. I have a bunch of paperwork I need to sign with my real estate attorney. And then I also have a bunch of paperwork I need to sign with my divorce attorney. How crazy is it that I have 2 attorneys on retainer, Judith?
I would like to know how much that costs.
It's not cheap. It is not cheap. Oh, it's ridiculous. And then
So you're closing on your house. You're getting officially divorced. You're having your birthday, and it's Quinn's anniversary.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And I'm dating, but I don't know that I'm going to talk about that.
You could just say you're dating someone.
And I'm dating somebody. I'm dating somebody who's not grieving, and I'm trying to figure out what that looks like, especially with this tough month happening. I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to navigate taking care of myself and also trying to open up enough to let this person take care of me as much as they are willing and able, and as much as feels appropriate considering the stage of our relationship, which is very new.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I asked you earlier, I was like, could you text that person and ask if they can bring you food? And you said no.
I mean, he would bring me food in an instant, no
Right.
question. It feels like, I mean, part of me is afraid I'm going to scare him off if I
think he's been waiting to see this side the whole time. Like, I think.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it would be good for you to give him a chance. He's like, please let me help you. And you're like, no, I'm okay.
So January is a hard month, and the 18th in particular, I'm expecting to be a hard day. And so, kind of just thinking about that, our episode today is kind of just a discussion about how do we prepare for the hard days. We have gone through some hard days already, some anticipated hard days already. And I know I've learned a lot about what I need to do to prepare myself. I don't know about you.
I also think that not only is this for hard days as grieving parents, but also I anticipate that this thought process would work for any hard day that you have coming up. Like, yeah. What would be another hard day if you didn't lose someone? I'm sure there is.
I can't think that far outside of my own head.
Hold on. Let me think of an example. I don't know. Any bad day, maybe.
How fucked up is that we can't think of anything that's bad outside of baby loss?
I'm struggling to think of things, but I know that other people suffer with all sorts of hard things. So I know that it must be
We do know that. We know that to be true. All of you listeners, we know we're not the only ones in the world suffering.
But if anyone can think of another good example of a bad day, please let me know.
Or don't. Judith does not need any ideas.
I don't need any idea. I have had bad days in my life before, but maybe you don't get a job, but you know, I don't know. I think the point is that it's anticipation. You know that something bad is coming. You know you have to prepare yourself for the potential of being like in a dark spot. How about
That's
that?
the thing too. That's the thing too, is that this is for days that you know you can anticipate are going to be hard. There are hard days out of nowhere too. But this is specifically for like, if you know there's a hard day upcoming, like, I guess it's just, how do we prepare for the hard days? We don't need to like teach people how to do it, but this is what we do.
Yeah. So Alina has some hard days coming up.
Yes. I do not have notes for this episode.
Well, let's start with this. How do you feel knowing we're starting January, which is a hard month?
I feel, it's interesting because Christmas just passed and my mom texted me after Christmas, like basically saying like, how are you feeling now that Christmas is over? And my response was not good, because it just means I'm closer to January 18th and the 15th too. Like my birthday, I'm not looking forward to either. I feel like this is a day that has been on my mind as like knowing it's going to be hard for a whole year, essentially. Like I've known that the anniversary of his death would be hard. I think I didn't have a concept in the beginning for like what that might look like, but now I do. I've gone through a couple of hard days, so I kind of have a sense of like what the shape of it might be, but also it could surprise me because this is the first death anniversary. This is my last first of the calendar year.
Yes. Not of life.
No, certainly not.
It marks a year.
Yeah, it marks a whole year of grief.
You've been through all the first of the calendar things. Sometimes the anticipation is worse than the actual day itself. And I would say that's a 50%, like 50% truth. 50% of the time I agree the anticipation is worse than the day itself. And then 50% of the time I'm like, no, that was a pretty shitty day. And I anticipated that correctly, that it was going to be horrific, and it was horrific.
Mm-hmm.
I would say just getting through this past December, which was filled with hard days for me, was I have now learned a little bit more what I'm going to need to help myself. I can anticipate what those hard days are going to look like. And because I can anticipate what it looks like, I can anticipate what my needs are going to be.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So as you're looking towards your birthday and Quinn's angelversary, so what are some of the things that you anticipate feeling? What are some of the things you anticipate needing? What are things that you anticipate doing for yourself to self-care?
So like going back in time, he died last January, obviously, but almost a year ago. The first specific day that I remember being harder than other days surrounding it was his 6-month birthday, which was March 22nd. That was a hard one. That was a day that I had so much anticipation about when he was alive, because we were going to, give him his first bites of food, and I had planned to give him an avocado, and I like felt like I wanted to really connect with him on that day. So I like made a big deal of going to get the avocado that I would have cut up for him and given to him on that day. And I honestly regret it, because I feel like, and I've talked about this in like support groups and I've talked about it in therapy, I feel like that day when I did that, I caused myself a lot of pain, because what I was doing was instead of kind of recalibrating for what makes sense for me with a dead 6-month-old, I was trying to do the thing that I had anticipated doing with my alive 6-month-old. And it didn't compute. Like my brain did not come together. It did not feel like I was honoring him. It did not feel like I was honoring myself as his mom. It felt like I was forcing a square peg into a round hole. So that I do not recommend. I do recommend doing an assessment of how it actually feels on that day and not forcing it if it doesn't feel good.
I'd like to comment on the avocado.
Yeah.
Because I had a very hard time with the avocado too. What would have been Aiden's 6-month birthday.
Yeah.
I was so obsessed with this idea that he would have had an avocado. And like the picture that would have been with the avocado picture.
Smashed on his face, like all covered in avocado.
Yeah, more so than literally any other milestone. For some reason, the 6-month avocado really ate at me.
Me too.
I don't know why. I think it's because there's like a symbolic ritual around turning 6 months. And I don't think that you have that for any other birthday except the first year. It's like the stupid avocado and then the first year birthday cake smash, you know?
Honestly, I think his 6-month birthday was harder than his first birthday. So let me fast forward ahead to his first birthday. So he would have turned 1 in September. And I did so much work, mental, emotional work leading up to his birthday so that it could be as peaceful as possible. And I did a lot of processing around what I felt were obligations that I had externally. Like, did I need to bake him a cake? No. And like, I talked a lot in therapy and in my own head. Like, I'm not kidding when I say I probably spent like every like thinking second for like weeks on end, thinking about what to do for his birthday. How could I be kind to myself surrounding his birthday? What did I really need? And, you know, it basically came down to, if he were alive on his first birthday, what he would want would just be me. You know, like looking at him and staring into his eyeballs and giving him attention. And he didn't need me to buy toys for him if he were alive. He doesn't need me to buy toys for, you know, to a charity. He would have probably smashed some cake around his face and made a cute face, but he didn't need cake on his first birthday. So I felt like I didn't need to bake him a cake when he's dead. But I did spend his entire birthday thinking about him. And it was really beautiful. I did a lot of prep work for the day. Like literally physical prep work. I cleaned my whole apartment so that I didn't have to worry about that. And so I had a nice calm space. I took a bath on that day. Like, I had bath salts ready. I had a whole bunch of candles. I replaced all the votives in my apartment so that I could have like candles lit all day and didn't even have to worry about like putting the candles in. Also, the biggest thing I did was the day before his birthday, I had an EMDR session. We haven't really talked about EMDR in here, but it's a treatment modality for trauma, but you can also use it for various other things. And basically in that therapy session, I did a dress rehearsal of his birthday, and we talked through like things that I might feel on that day and things that might happen on that day and how did I want to feel. And then we basically just I practiced in my own head my emotional response to things that would probably happen on that day. And I felt like it was so helpful because I actually would come back to it on his actual birthday and be like, this is how I've practiced this. Like, I feel prepared. I can do this. So I felt very prepared for his birthday.
And how did you interact with your family and other people who wanted to or didn't want to? Or like, how did you deal with all the other people and his birthday?
I know that my family would have wanted to do something for his birthday together. It would have been incredibly sad. I know that they felt debilitatingly sad on that day as well. But for me, especially because, you know, I'm separated from Quinn's other parent, Kaylee, who you guys have heard from now. If this is the first, if you missed that episode, by the way, Kaylee is Chloe. I'll just say that.
Because it's a really good episode.
Yeah, go back and listen to that episode. It's a really good one. And, you know, because we were separated, like we actually had quite a lot of conversations, Kaylee and I, about like, did we want to do something together? And both of us felt like, you know, since we weren't a married couple, like it felt like we would be taking care of each other, but not in a way that was like helpful to each other. So we spent it apart. We did Zoom for a little bit and cry. But yeah, his birthday, I felt like very prepared for his death anniversary. I don't quite know. I have a lot of thinking to do. I'm entering the thinking phase and the prepping phase, because with his birthday, that was a beautiful day that I was remembering. You know, it was a lovely anniversary, whereas this is the anniversary of the worst trauma that I will ever go through in my entire life. Most likely, please universe. Like, I hope that's the worst day of my life.
There's two parts. It's almost like it's the anniversary of the trauma for you, and then it's also the anniversary of his loss, of like his death. It's like if I had like, there's a Jewish tradition that after you, like, let's say you survive a car crash or a drowning episode or something like that, like you like throw like a party to like celebrate, to thank God for living. And it's like on the anniversary, some people do on the anniversary of that event, every year they like give some charity, or they like host a dinner at their home as a way to thank God and thank their community, for bringing them through that difficult time. And it's called it's a kind of like a Thanksgiving, because that's what it's called. Anyway, my point is that it's like there's like a part of your brain that will know that the worst day of your life is happening again. And then there's also the sadness of losing your son. They happen to be on the exact same day.
Right.
So it's like two things that you're trying to battle. One, you're trying to remember Quinn and you're trying to celebrate him. On the other hand, it's like you have a lot of trauma to process yourself in terms of finding him, in terms of just the shock of losing him. It's like complicated. It's not so straightforward.
Yeah. And like, God, now I have so many things about what you just said. First of all, I love the idea of like, I don't know that this year is the year, but basically throwing yourself I survived party. Like, I feel like I genuinely, I think you feel this way too. Like, I feel like I almost died. I really do. I really feel like I was inches from just keeling over and dying.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to say because nothing, nothing happened to me. But a broken heart has killed people.
Yeah.
And it really, I don't even mean in a mental health sense. I genuinely do not even mean in a mental health sense. I mean, literally, my body felt as though it was dying.
Right. So it's like you're celebrating, or not, I don't know, celebrating, but you're honoring the fact that you lived through that.
Yes.
So it's a lot of layers.
Yeah.
It's a lot of layers. And then the other thing I was going to say is I find it really interesting how you and I go about this very differently.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really good example of like us being different people.
Yeah. Because, you guys may have heard Aiden's first birthday party. There was a whole party.
And I remember I was crying because I was like stressing about making the birthday cake. And you're like, Judith, you do not have to make a birthday cake. Why are you making a birthday cake? And I have never been more adamant in my entire life that he was going to get a birthday cake.
Yes.
And he wasn't going to get any birthday cake. You're like, just go buy one. I was like, no, I am making him a cake. And I was so insistent. I was like, if I can make my niece and nephews a cake, and if I can make everyone else's kid a birthday cake, then my kid is going to have a fucking good cake.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like if I didn't make him a cake, it would be a disservice to him. It would almost be like, for me, the deepest fear that I have is that his life won't count and his life won't matter and his life won't have existed because it was so short. And so for me to like say, you did live, see, I know you lived because you got a birthday cake,
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, that was like more important than what he would want, which I don't think he would care if it was a cake or not. But for me, it was, I need to solidify in the universe that you existed.
Yeah. You called me that day, and I was with the person that I have been dating, and we wound up both crying on the phone because I think your baby's first birthday should be such a big celebratory event, but both of us kind of had to come to terms with leading up to it that it was not going to be a happy day.
No.
Like, isn't that so tragic? Like, just think about that. If you're listening and you have kids and they're alive, think about how awful it would be for your baby's birthday, your child's birthday, to be one of the days on the calendar that you feel like you have to literally just make it through. Isn't that awful?
Yes, it is. It's awful to plan a theme for the cake, not knowing 100% what they like, but just, I felt it was important for me to give him an equally good cake as I would anyone else. Mm-hmm. And because I like to decorate cakes, I felt it was a mess, but I got him the wheels on the bus cake because I felt he needed that. But can you imagine picking a theme for a dead baby's birthday? Like, no one wants to ever imagine that, but that was what I chose to do. And there are probably a lot of people who, like you, would not have chosen to do that. But for me, it was important. And I think that that's another way that we are different, is in terms of incorporating our families. For me, I'm so afraid that my family will not forget him, but just not include him, won't count him. When they count the grandkids in their family or the the cousins, they won't count him as existing. And so I feel the need, even when, and I know I spoke to you about this, even when I don't want to include them, even when it is too much for me to like be managing a birthday party for a dead baby, I feel it is more important that my family has a way to integrate him into their lives than it is for me to feel better. Does that make any sense?
Yes. I mean, part of these hard days, these like anticipatory hard days, is that you want to make his presence, it's important to you as Aiden's mom. Part of your parenting of Aiden is that you want to make sure that he remains included in your family. You have a niece and nephews. You have siblings in the same stage of life where they're married and, maybe starting families or already have kids. For me, like Quinn was the only grandchild. So no one's going to forget him. He will always have been the first grandchild. I think there's something a little bit different about that. And like you're saying, it's just our personality too, Yeah.
But I also think it's like, I need to know that my family is also grieving his loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not because it necessarily comforts me, but because I feel it's really important. Like if they're not grieving his loss, it's like he didn't count.
I really do feel like that's part of your parenting of him.
Yeah.
Which is lovely. It's beautiful. He deserves that from you.
If Aiden was alive, I would have gone above and beyond for his birthday parties, and I would have decorated everything, and I would have like gone a little extra for everything, because that's just my personality. I like to plan surprise parties and whatever. I like to do the whole theme shit. And so I feel like it just feels like I wouldn't, if I didn't make a thing of it, to me, that's not even honoring him, because to me, that's how I would parent him if he was alive, by making a thing of it. And when we're thinking about his anniversary of death, I was just thinking about it because my brother and my sister have decided to come in, which was so thoughtful of them, because I didn't even ask them. They just both wanted to be there, which I feel is the right thing. And so I'm grateful for that. And we were thinking about, and I was talking to my husband about what we're going to do for it, because it's coming up a couple months after Quinn. And I decided, like, for me, also part of it is I think when there's a lack of structure, people just dissolve into tears, and then they start saying things to me like, you're so brave, you're so strong, you're so wonderful. Everyone's crying and looking at me. And to me, I rather have a structure where people can use their energies in like a way to honor Aiden as opposed to comforting me.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I think I could take a page from your book in that sense, because I think my family has a lot of love for Quinn. My family and friends have a lot of love for Quinn with nowhere to go, because this year I have really retreated into myself. I know that it's hard for my family in particular. And I have no regrets. I think I've done a really good job taking care of myself. And obviously that's the most important thing, because I need to survive and get through this so that I can give them more grandchildren. But I do feel like that they have all this love with nowhere to go, because I'm not letting them dump it at me, which is fine. I don't think they need to dump it at me, but they don't have a direction for it. And I know that that's hard for them.
And they probably don't want to upset you. They probably don't want to choose something that maybe you would be hurt by or you would be offended by. And so they're kind of stuck. They're like, she's not telling us what she wants. I think that they're afraid of us in a way.
Yeah. I think people are really afraid of saying the wrong thing, so then they don't say anything. And I think one thing I would say is just, an I'm sorry goes a long way, and I'm thinking of you goes a long way. And I will also say one of the things that I do, that I have done in preparation for hard days, that's Mother's Day in particular, and Quinn's birthday, is I gave myself the permission to not text people back. So if you messaged me on those days, I appreciated it so much. But if you message me on my birthday this year, honestly, or, the anniversary of Quinn's death, I'm probably not going to text you back. You might get a heart emoji. But I'm appreciating it. And please do text me if you're listening. And you want to let me know you're thinking of me. I would appreciate it, but I won't text you back. So yeah, to my family and friends who are listening, if you feel like you want to give me a birthday gift this year, and or give a gift in honor of Quinn at the anniversary of his death, I will encourage you to donate to Empty Arms, which is an organization that I've been going to their support group since a couple days after Quinn died. My family knows who they are because I talk about them all the time. But that would absolutely be a way that you can honor him and, honor me. And also here's another thing, like, I don't know, sometimes I get overwhelmed when people tell me this stuff on the hard day. Like maybe you can do it and then you can just tell me about it a week later. Like tell me about it before. Like sometimes it feels like a lot on that day. I'm rambling so much in this episode. I don't know how this is going to get edited together.
But I think it's helpful. I think people want to know what to do. Like, what if your friends came to you and said, like, we want to walk for SIDS, and they like did a marathon, which my friends will not because we don't run. But like, my question is, do you want to see people start the initiative? Do you want people to follow your lead? How do you want people to show up for you on these hard days? That's what I'm asking.
I think that this year, the way that I've wanted and needed people to show up for me is in practical care.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
so in anticipation of hard days, you need like the food.
That's right. I think I don't have a lot of, I can tell that I'm going to be someone in the later stages of my grief who does the 5Ks. And, like, I think that will be me. I already have volunteered with the Roberts program to like be on a panel. And like, I was like, if you ever need a mom to speak at something, at a fundraiser, like call me up, like I will do it. Like, I can tell that that's going to be me in the later stages of my grief. But right now, this past year, I'm normally such a competent person, and I have been such a disaster that really what I've needed and what feels like taking care of me and honoring Quinn is honoring his mom by like giving her food.
No, I think that people need that guidance. I don't think that that's obvious.
Yeah. I do think I've said it a lot.
I believe you. I believe you've said it 25 times, but I also think that no one knows. They don't know.
They don't know. Well, here we go.
What you're saying in terms of anticipating the hard days and what you're doing for it. You said you cleaned your apartment, maybe telling the people that love you, like, I'm going to need you to give me food. That's what I've done in the past on Friday night and Saturday, because those are going to be really hard days for me and I need the food. Or like, I know another thing that you do is you plan self-care, like you get a facial or something the day after.
Yes, that's a great point. Thank you, Judith, for that. So the day after Quinn's birthday and the day after Christmas, I scheduled myself to go get a facial because that felt like just a way that I had something to look forward to that was relaxing and really self-carey. And it really felt like a delimiter. Like before this, I was crying and my eyes were puffy. And then now I'm getting my face pampered. And then now it's done.
Yeah.
The hard day is done.
I have been doing that too. The day after or the late in the day of, I've been trying to find a way, either a friend has, graciously organized it, or I myself have found a way to do some sort of self-care that is purely selfish. And that just feels good as a way to say, you made it, you did it, you got through that hard day. That was a horrible day. Yeah. Now we're moving forward back to baseline.
Yeah.
On those really bad days, or in anticipation of those really bad days, I know that we both retreat into ourselves. So can you talk a little bit about the process of like shutting down?
That's a really good question. And my family, I'm sure, is like turning up the volume and getting out a notepad, because I think that this is something that has confused them over this last year. I mean, I've always been, I think I was born like a 30-year-old. Like I was like a child who like, I was like very on top of my shit. Like my parents didn't need to remind me to do my homework. Like I've always been a very self-sufficient person. When I say I'm retreating into myself, this is such a good question. I have so many thoughts that I like can't even get them out of my head.
Think through what you want to say. Think it through. Take a minute and think it through. I'll say for myself that I am not somebody who typically disappears into the planets. I'm someone who is typically super involved in like my life, my friends' lives. I'm like super. So for me, this idea of removing myself from social media, from WhatsApp groups, from social interaction, just like spending a lot of time in bed alone and home is something I've had to learn how to do. It has been a learned exercise that when there's going to be a hard day, I do nothing. and I actively do nothing. I actively talk to no one. I think some people are born into that. Like some people, my husband seems to know how to do it innately, and like he seems to be very good at doing nothing. But for me, this is a learned exercise, and it's not necessarily easy for me. But one thing that I have heard is that when you're ever feeling like mentally overwhelmed, treat yourself as if you're physically sick. So they said, drink a lot of fluids, take a lot of hot showers, lay in bed, stay in pajamas for at least 24 hours. Treat yourself as if your body is sick, even though your mind is really the one that's hurting. And I really try to take that advice. I purposely, intentionally do nothing because I know that if I do nothing, that gives my brain the space to process all the feelings it needs to feel. And I can get to the other side of the hard day easier, as opposed to if I plan other activities.
Have you ever said that to me before? That's genius. And I need to like write it down.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think I have, but dropping wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, I've always been an introverted person, and I've always been very self-sufficient. And I think that, you know, for me on the hard days when I'm retreating into myself, I think part of it is I'm setting boundaries around what can get into my brain as a protective measure. And honestly, like it's to protect everybody else too, like, because they're trying so hard to take care of me. And so many people text me stuff like as an example, on Quinn's birthday, I probably got 20 like happy birthday messages, which is great. Depending on the moment of the day, seeing happy birthday, like the words happy birthday was painful because it's like, it's not a happy birthday. So in order to prevent that, I just put my phone on do not disturb and didn't look at the text messages. And if I was feeling stronger, then I looked at the text messages and saw, you know, who had messaged me. I think it's definitely self-protective when I'm retreating into myself. It's almost like I don't trust the world and I don't trust the people in the world to not hurt me. So in order to not get hurt, I just, you know, go into my little safe space, which is my little apartment with my cats. And that's kind of what I do. And I certainly think that I could at some point benefit from opening up those doors a little bit. And part of me opening up has been sharing this podcast with my family, because before they were listening to this, they really had no idea what was going on in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I do a lot of internal processing. I always have.
Well, I think part of it is also that the feelings are so big that they take up space, and it's like they take up every square inch of my brain. And so I feel like I don't have mental space for anyone to say anything about anything that's not me, which is it sounds very selfish, but I think part of the reason that I remove myself from the world on those hard days is because I know that I can't listen to anyone talk about anything else. My feelings are so big. They take up the entire room, entire house. And so it's like, there's no space for me to think about anything else or do anything else.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So that's another thing that a couple days before, I'll start to feel my brain get a little fuzzy. The white noise gets a little louder. I find myself spending more and more and more time at home, retreating into the world, not responding to people, not answering calls, not making calls. I find myself just really in bed or on the couch. And I don't schedule doctor's appointments. I just find myself completely distracted by my feelings, and it kind of is a slow decline, usually over 24 or 48 hours. The day itself is usually bad, and I just feel very emotional, very fuzzy. And then the next morning, it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
It's like I'm hungover. I feel hungover.
Yes. Yes.
I feel fine. I feel baseline, you know?
The thing that's so fascinating about it is I do feel like there's very much a physical exhaustion component to it. Like, it's like I feel so tired when I'm actively grieving on these really hard days. I am so tired. I literally, like, the energy to like move from the sofa to bed at night is like, oh my God, like I don't even have it in me.
I know.
And then, like you're saying, like the next day, I feel as though I ran a marathon.
Yes. But then emotionally I'm fine.
Yes.
then emotionally I'm fine. I'm balanced. I can listen to people's problems. I can talk to somebody. I also want to add something that I think is really important is that we have to take a minute to acknowledge our privilege and our misfortune, which is that we don't have any other children. And if we had other children or obligations to tend to, I suspect it would be even more difficult to retreat into the world and to just turn everyone off and to put all my energy focusing on myself. Because what if you have other children that need you? Like what? I don't really know how that must be really difficult to balance your needs as a grieving parent with their needs as a child.
I mean, and even to a greater extent, like my privilege and misfortune is that I don't have a husband to deal with. I can literally, no one needs me.
Yeah.
Except me. I need me. I need me a lot.
This would be my advice to anyone who wants to know. You're not going to be able to make it better. You can only make them comfortable.
Yes.
So it's like, on these horrible days, don't call and talk about your feelings because there's nothing to talk about. Like, this is not the time for me. I don't feel capable of like sitting there and analyzing my feelings with someone. I just need to be like physically taken care of so I can do them.
I think the hard work of grief, the grieving, has to be done by me in my own head.
Yes.
The other stuff surrounding it people can help with that. They can help me make meaning out of Quinn's loss by donating to a charity, by giving a gift in his honor to a baby of his same age. Like, sure, that sounds lovely. Like they can help me make meaning of his life in that way. They can help me literally stay alive. They can bring me food, whatever it is, they can do that. But they can't get me through. They can't get me through the hard emotions. I have to just feel them myself. And like one thing I really do try to remember on those hard days, and I remind myself of this constantly leading up to it, and I ask you to remind me of it constantly on that hard day. The worst day is only 24 hours long.
It's true. It's not permanent.
Nope. It will end. And I cling to that. I cling to that on the hard days that I just have to get through one day. And we'll say to each other, like, okay, you did 5 more minutes. I'm so proud of you. Oh my God, look how many hours of the day you've already gotten through. Like, you're doing such a good job.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Because the only way to get up to the next day is to go through it. You have no choice.
It's true.
I don't have brain space for anything else. Let's just get to the next hour, to the next hour, to the next hour, to the next hour. Mm-hmm. And then it's over. And you go on to the next day and it's, it is what it is. Okay. So let's talk about the difference between the hard days we choose to be involved in versus the hard days we choose not to be involved in. I wonder if there are people out there that are like, I don't want to celebrate my son's birthday. It's too hard this year. So do you think that's possible? Like how can you opt out?
Oh my God. My advice, skip it. You guys, your life is hard enough.
You didn't want to celebrate Quinn's birthday. It was too much.
Honestly, I actually feel like in many ways, I did not celebrate Quinn's birthday this past year. I pretty much feel like I opted out. I do think in future years, I would want to have a big family party. I would want to bake a cake for him. I would want to do that for my family, for everybody, with my in-laws and everybody. That's important to me. But this year, honestly, like I genuinely do feel like I skipped his birthday. I did honor him in my own head, in my own home, in my heart, but I did not do his birthday. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I would say, honestly, honest to God, I would say skip whatever does not feel good.
Yeah.
Skip it. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. Your kid's still dead.
Yeah. And I myself, like I was saying, like I was celebrating his birthday for me, not him.
Right.
So it's like they don't need it. They don't need it.
No.
The question is, what do you need? Because right now, that's all you have to do is take care of you.
Yeah.
I also want to ask another question. I know we only have a couple minutes left, but I wanted to ask another question, which goes back to the beginning of the conversation that we had when we talk about like mental processing and the work of grief. When Aiden first died, I asked every lost mom I could talk to, like, what does that mean? What do you do? What do you mean I just sit there and process? Like, can you paint me a picture of the processing? Like when you say that you're sitting there emotionally processing on the couch, what are you doing? What is it?
That's such a good question. So I'll give you an example of like some emotional processing I did yesterday, which was I was watching TV, and for whatever reason, something came up that reminded me of Quinn. And I paused the TV, I closed my eyes, and I imagined how old he would be. I think, there was a baby. I was watching a documentary, and there was a baby that had kind of like wispy hair that looked kind of like Quinn's. And so I paused the TV, I closed my eyes, and I pictured in my head what it felt like to touch his hair when he was alive. And then I was thinking, I wonder how long his hair would be, and imagining how long his hair would be now. And then I thought, I wonder, how big, 15-month-olds are. And I was picturing with my body, like feeling how it would feel to hold him on my hip. And I was thinking, kind of like imagining what he might be like in my apartment, like he'd be sitting and crawling around. And that's just like that's one little piece of it, is my brain kind of trying to reconcile the different timelines of my life, one where he's alive and one where he's dead. So that's one thing that is processing.
That was a very good example.
Yeah.
I would say sometimes I will be looking on Amazon for something, and as one of the examples, they'll have Aiden as like a name on a towel, something like that. And then I'll look at the towel and I'll be like, oh, and then I'll just be so sad. Like I'll be overcome with sadness that my son doesn't have a towel with his name on it. And then I will close my eyes, or I'll keep my eyes open, and I will just sit there and feel so sad.
Yes.
That's what I do. I will sit there and I will feel so sad. And then I'll just let myself be sad until 1 minute, I don't know, I wake up or I come out of my thought and I'm like, okay, I felt sad. I don't feel so sad anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I was laying in bed one time and I all of a sudden caught a whiff of the way his breath smelled when he was a newborn, which was so sweet. And I just lied there and I felt, first of all, so connected to him. That's another thing that I'm doing when I'm grieving sometimes, is just kind of trying to hold on tight to any little bit of connection that I feel to him. So I was breathing in and out and smelling the way his breath smelled, because it had come to me and I could remember it at that moment, and feeling so sad. And the thing is, and then it passes, it goes away.
Yeah. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to sit there and be sad.
Yes.
It's uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable. Okay, wait, hold on. My brain is in two different directions, but it's uncomfortable to be sad. It's uncomfortable to be angry. It's uncomfortable to sit there and be jealous. Sometimes I'll see people on a walk and I'll just watch this person with their dog in their stroller and I'll just be so jealous. And it's uncomfortable to sit in jealousy. I think that part of the work of grief is just the pain of sitting in pain.
Yeah,
and like
basically.
It's uncomfortable.
Yep.
And most of the time, I mean, like before this, if I was in pain, I would want to like distract myself or escape the pain or whatever it is. And now I know that the only solution is to just sit there and feel it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no one wants to do that, but that's the only way to get to the other side, which reminds me of when I one time asked my therapist why I'm so tired after I cry. And she said to me, she was like, well, you're not tired because you cried. She's tired because you cried because the depth of emotion is so strong. Like you cried because you were in so much pain, and pain is exhausting. Yeah. Emotional pain is exhausting. So think about it, if you have a name on a towel and then you have to spend the next 10 minutes just feeling so sad that your son doesn't have a towel and wondering what else you would have had their name monogrammed on, and wondering, like thinking all those things and just sitting there for 10 minutes feeling so sad, you would feel so tired, and you only just made breakfast. I still need to go about my whole day. So that was breakfast. Then I take my dog on a walk and I see the lady on a walk with a stroller. Again, I feel jealous. And some of these emotions just last for a minute, but sometimes they last for 5 minutes, or sometimes it could be an hour or something like that. So just think that if all day long you're sitting there feeling every single feeling, and every single feeling is so vibrant and so potent, by the end of the day, you're just exhausted from feeling feelings.
Yeah. And like, you know, to the extreme, when I do EMDR, my trauma processing, like I'm feeling extreme feelings for a full hour, and I come home and I get in bed because I'm that tired.
I think with time, there are fewer, not triggers, there are fewer times where I get completely and totally overwhelmed with a feeling and I'm able to re-snap myself back into this world. But for those first 6 months, literally all I did was feel feelings all day. On our Instagram, I wrote about how I think 75% of grief work is mindlessly scrolling through TikTok. Yeah. And what I mean by that is like your brain gets a break
Yeah.
If I know I'm controlled watching a woman make a cupcake, I know that this will not remind me of Aiden. And so my brain can just rest.
Yes.
And I think it's the same reason why we like to listen to music on repeat as a way to rest, because my brain knows what to expect and there's no feelings.
Yeah.
I just get to spend an hour feeling nothing.
That's why these hard days are hard, because we know it's going to be a whole day of feeling so sad. Okay. Judith has to go to therapy. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really rambled in this one, but it's January. Not looking forward to this month, but happy New Year, guys.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.